Once again I'm back with another figure to show you guys. This time it's a quite well-known character from the mobile games Clash of Clans and Clash Royale. Its name is P.E.K.K.A, or just P.E.K.K.A. As soon as I joined Clash of Clans back in 2015, I was immediately in awe of P.E.K.K.A's design and abilities. A mix between robot, samurai and knight. A tanky and powerful but slow troop to use. Anyway, let's begin by seeing how well this paper figure moves. The head can rotate, move back and forth and tilt side to side. Adding all of that up makes up for a ball joint style motion path. Arms on this figure are intricately designed, mostly due to all the parts that make up its design. First there is this shoulder armor piece that can tilt up and down and rotate. This eases motion for the arms a lot. The arm itself can move up like so, and along with it moves also the shoulder armor piece. Coming down there is a wide round armor piece that can rotate. It's basically the bicep of the arm. Next there's the elbow joint. It's a bit limited because of all the armor, but it does move. Around the forearm there is an armor plate that rotates. The hands of the figure can rotate and tilt as usual. The right hand holding the sword has 4 fingers, 3 of which have joints that allows them to move. They can grip the sword, which is removable. The other hand's fingers are solid though. The chest section can tilt forwards and backwards, but only a little. It can also rotate and move side to side. The belly-like armor part can rotate, and same goes for the groin protection here. The central piece can move forwards. Finally the legs. They are very small but are still able to move decently. Kick and spread range is limited. Knee joints also rotate and add bend, and same goes for the shoes. Overall, articulation is best where the focus of action for the character is, which is the arms, head and legs. Despite all the bulkiness, the figure articulates okay, but there is room for improvement, as usual. Now, to clear a few things out, I was a bit lost on how to execute the coloration on this figure, so I went on the safe side and chose a solid blue color for most of the figure's body. In theory the figure would have looked better being of a very dark blue color, but this was the darkest blue I had. P.E.K.K.A's armor is shiny, kind of, so I chose to cover the armor pieces with tape. Feel free to be the judge, if this gives it a nice effect or not. I think it's alright. The best colored parts of the figure are all the spikes around P.E.K.K.A's armor. They are a mix of purples, pinks and light pinks. I think the effect I recreated is rather nice, though not totally accurate. The legs are colored in a lighter blue, and have a detailed chainmail-like texture. It's nothing extraordinary but it does the job. Other than that, the figure has a slight balancing issue. The legs and feet are so small in their design that they make it hard for P.E.K.K.A to stand on its own, unless you take minutes to position everything correctly, which I did, many times. And it gets tiring after a while. Let's look at the figure more closely. To begin with, the head. It does have a nice shape and it's overall proportionate, though the top could have been smoother. I managed to make the face of P.E.K.K.A quite expressive, despite being only 2 eyes, brows and a gap at the center. The horns on the side of the helmet are great also. They are colored with this purple to pink to light pink pattern. However, I'll reveal later a small consistent issue that all the colored spikes have. Next you can see there's plenty of armor pieces all around the head. I think I managed to recreate the right size of shapes for these parts. Since they aren't thin pieces of metal, but thick steel armor, I had to make the parts 3-dimensional, by adding surfaces at the top and sides. They feel solidly attached, which is good. Near the head there are fixed shoulder pads, with one short spike on the top. It's fixed in place, though you may realize soon that this feature may be a problem. The chest armor here seems to have nice shapes, and it fits nicely on the body. Back up here near the shoulders there are large removable pieces of armor. They have 2 sets of spikes each. One set at the top, and one at the back. All the spikes have very similar coloring on them. As you can see the shoulder armor has plenty of detail, like these drawn dark lines all around, and even corner pieces that make it look really nice. Here is a view from the back. I have to admit I'm happy of how the massive armor pieces fit together all around. You can notice here that there was an attempt at adding some shining detail on certain parts of the armor, like here on the shoulder and the top of the body armor. I suppose it looks okay. Now the arms. They have a nice shape and proportions all around. They are composed of several parts of armor and structure pieces for articulation. For the bicep there is a huge rotating cone-shaped armor piece, and then the forearm has another rotating part of armor, composed of a cone-like armor piece with a strap covered in bolt heads, and of a large plate with 4 spikes on them. It is one of the best looking parts of the figure, to be honest. The main arm joint allows the arm to easily tilt up, but it cannot rotate at 360 degrees. That's because of the shoulder armor near the neck, that could move together with the arm, if I didn't choose to fix it in place. Though if I did that, the arm joint and armor would have been much more complex. Next, the sword holding hand. The only hand of the figure that has articulated fingers, that can grip the sword quite well. The sword itself has nice shapes, and it's very solid. Moving to the body of the figure, there is the biggest piece of armor, that is the belly armor. I think the shape of it is on point. The corners have extended parts that add a very nice look. You can see there's more to be found at the sides, where there are these strap-like things with bolt heads on them, that keep the massive belly armor attached to the rest of the body. Near the bottom of the figure there is this groin protection area. As usual, the shapes are okay, though the back doesn't look as good. Finally, the legs. You may notice they are very small compared to the rest of the body, but I still made them in accordance to the design. They have the usual motion points that you would find in a leg for my paper figures. However, the freedom of motion compromises the stability of the figure even more than it already does, which is annoying. Some figures are just intended to have a stand that holds them, it seems, though you can still see there is plenty of detail on the legs and armored shoes. The shoes in particular are very small, but still have an appropriate shape. A few things need to be said about this figure. P.E.K.K.A has always been one of my favorite designs for a character, and finally making him in paper form was quite challenging, since this is probably my first very bulky figure. As far as I'm aware, there are no articulated P.E.K.K.A action figures on the internet, so I'm glad I can appreciate my figure more. P.E.K.K.A has this design that appears almost goofy and cartoony, you know, huge arms, small legs, huge belly armor, yet the design is still cool and somewhat badass, especially because P.E.K.K.A is one of the strongest units in the games Clash of Clans and Clash Royale. The figure is generally very solid, especially the armor. The weakest points are the spikes. Unfortunately, they tend to snap off the armor, and I had to glue them in back at least 8 times. The smaller spikes fall off the most. Proportions-wise, the figure is mostly good, though the arms may be slightly too long, and the legs might be a bit too short. Other than that, the figure has quite good articulation, especially around the arms and head. Plenty of improvements could be made in future iterations, such as the color of the armor, which is complicated, as well as the details and shading, which shouldn't be hard to do. I find it that I like the figure, but not as much as Hanami or Dio. Also, here's the size comparison. You can clearly see how much of a unit P.E.K.K.A is compared to other characters. If he was the same height as them, he would be huge. Anyway, I thank you all for watching this video. Plenty more videos are on the way, such as the second part of the tutorial, which I'm still working on. I appreciate your comments, everybody. I'll see you all on the next video.